Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for Senator Min's Cash for College workshop in partnership with the California Student Aid Commission. Unfortunately, the Senator is not able to make it live today on this webinar, but he's recorded a quick video for you all to kick off the workshop here that I'll share right now.
Hi, I'm State Senator Dave Min, and I have the privilege of representing California's 37th Senate District in the heart of Orange County. I'm sorry I'm not able to join you live today, but I'm in Sacramento to chair the inaugural hearing of the Cybersecurity Select Committee. But I want to thank you for joining us today, and I want to give a special thank you to the California Student Aid Commission for your tireless efforts and partnership in putting this workshop together. The California Student Aid Commission is focused on assisting students and parents like yourselves receive the aid you're eligible for through programs like FAFSA and the California DREAM Act and others. College affordability should not be an obstacle to attaining higher education, but we know that too often that is the case. The student debt crisis just keeps escalating, and the average student in California right now has $34,000 plus in student debt. Last year, the 2020 to 2021 enrollment year, California community colleges reported that FAFSA applications were down by 11%. The Public Policy Institute of California reported that only 38.6% of high school seniors even completed the FAFSA. That was a 10% drop from the previous year. We've got to do better. These numbers are very, very sobering, and they're really the inspiration for today's event. We know that the biggest reason for the drop in FAFSA applications is a lack of awareness. Many students, high school seniors, report not knowing about available aid or when the relevant deadlines are. And unfortunately, many high schools don't have this information available. That's why I was so excited to work with the California Student Aid Commission to put together this workshop to help inform you about the various programs you may be eligible for and how you can apply. This past year, I had the honor of serving on the State Senate's Budget Committee and the Budget Subcommittee for Education. And I got a firsthand experience with how complicated it is to try to understand the different federal and state financial aid programs out there for higher education. Now, I'm proud to say we were able to pass some bills trying to simplify the process. I was able to negotiate an increase in the number of slots at the University of California and CSUs, but we have a lot of work still to do. Increasing admission for California's state college system is the key for expanding opportunity and allowing folks like yourselves to achieve the American dream, whether for Orange County residents or across the state, especially for those who are first-time college graduates, first-generation college attendees. And here in Orange County, we're home to some of the finest universities in the state, including my old employer, the University of California, Irvine, as well as CSU Fullerton, which, believe it or not, is the largest issuer of bachelor degrees in the nation. I look forward to continue advocating for our students and to increase accessibility to higher education for students across this state. My strong belief is that everyone should have access to higher ed because this is the foundation of opportunity, of success, and it's done wonders for our economy as a state. But unfortunately, we have an issue where access to higher education is not always easy. Not only can college tuition be extremely expensive, but other factors like housing, books, transportation, and personal expenses can add up. Last year, I was proud to be a co-author of AB 1456, which would have massively expanded the Cal Grant program to cover these types of non-tuition expenses. Unfortunately, it was vetoed by the governor, but we look forward to trying to push that ahead next year with my colleagues in the Assembly and Senate. But today we're going to talk about financial aid and how it can be offered to students throughout the state that can help offset some of those costs. Thank you again for joining us today for this webinar. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can type them in the chat and our panelists will get to them after the presentations. Or if you want to reach out to my office, you can find us at SD37, that stands for Senate District 37, sd37.senate.ca.gov. Or you can reach out to the California Student Aid Commission if you have questions or need assistance after this event. With that, I'm going to pass it to Eddie Chikwa from CSAC, who has loads of information on student aid. Thank you again for attending, and I hope you get a lot out of this program today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Senator. I know that was a virtual presentation, but still thank you so much, Senator. And thank you so much to the Senator's staff for having us here today. So we're going to get right into the presentation. As I do that, I just want to make sure, can everybody hear me clearly? Is it coming off clearly in the chat? If you could just type yes in the chat, if you can hear me clearly and see my screen. Awesome. Let's see. Let's do this. Okay. There we go. There we go. Awesome. And it looks like everybody can hear me clearly. Perfect. So once again, thank you so much to the Senator's staff and to the Senator himself for having us here today. My name is Edwin Chikukwa. I'm the Cash for College Coordinator at the California Student Aid Commission. I also have with me Judith Gutierrez, who's the Outreach and Marketing Coordinator from the California Student Aid Commission. So we're here to help. We're here to answer questions. The way we're going to go about today is we are going to hopefully help people get started with their applications. We're giving people information about the applications. We'll be covering the free application for federal student aid, which is the FAFSA, and or the California GMAT application, which is the CADA. Then we're going to go over some parts of the application that may be difficult. And then at the end, we'll try and answer your questions rapid fire. Now, with that being said, I'm actually going to turn off my video. I realize that I've been told a lot by people that I talk with my hands and that can get really distracting. So I don't want to put you in a situation where you have to look up and down from slide to phase to slide to Eddie to slide to Eddie. Don't want to do that. Don't want to give you a concussion from that. Instead, I'm going to turn off my video and y'all be able to see me. But once again, I'll just be presenting so that y'all can focus on the slides more. So with that being said, I'm going to get into this presentation. Okay, so the first thing is there are two applications. There's the California GMAT application, that is a state application. And then there's the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA. So when you hear me say FAFSA, I'm talking about free application for federal student aid. When you hear me say CADA, I'm talking about California GMAT application. And I'm going to use that shorthand terminology, CADA, FAFSA, throughout this presentation, because as you can imagine, it's kind of a lot to say free application for federal student aid or California GMAT application every time I'm talking. So since it's a lot, I'm used to it by now, but it's a lot, I'll definitely be using those shorthand terms. Before we get into it, I do want to specify that every student should only fill out one of these applications. So you shouldn't be filling out both of these applications. One applies to undocumented students. The other one applies to permanent residents and U.S. citizens. So the FAFSA would be permanent resident U.S. citizens. The CADA would be undocumented students. And we'll get more into who should be applying for which a little bit later in the presentation, but that's just a general guide. Undocumented students fill out the CADA, permanent residents and U.S. citizens fill out the FAFSA, and you shouldn't be filling out both these applications. You should only be filling out one of them. So next thing we need to know about financial aid. In financial aid, it's funny, someone says we're always in like 3 different years in financial aid. So we're in 2022, 2023. That's the academic year that we're talking about, right? But the applications opened about a month ago on October 1st, 2021. But when it comes to tax information for these applications, you're using 2020 tax information. And that's what we call prior tax information. So even though a student would be applying for the 2022-2023 academic year, that's the year they're actually going to college, that's the year they're actually applying for, they would use the 2020 tax information, their own or their parents and guardians if it is required on the application. So I just want to make that very clear. Now, I know that instantly raises some alarm bells for some of y'all because first thing is, wait, 2020 is last year. A lot has happened since last year. We've had a global pandemic to begin with. Yeah, a lot of things have happened since last year. So 2020 tax information might not necessarily reflect what the student and their family are going through or going to be, or the situation they're going to be in by 2022, 2023. And we in financial aid, we 100% understand that. So that's what we call a special circumstance. And I'll talk a little bit more about what to do when we have special circumstances. But for right now, all you need to know, at least as of now, is when it comes to tax information, which tax information should I use? It is prior tax information, 2020 tax information for the applications. Now, how much money can I get? That is the question that everybody wants to know. And I hate to sound like the lawyers from CSAC, but it depends. And as you can tell, I get that answer a lot from our lawyers at the Student Aid Commission. But it's an honest answer. It depends, really. And here's why it depends. Because the first thing we have to look at is the cost of attendance of the university that the student is trying to attend. And as you can tell, that's going to differ wildly depending on what the student picks. So for example, a community college is not going to cost the same as a private college or a private four-year university. A private four-year university is not going to cost the same as a public four-year university. A vocational school is not going to cost the same as community college. So these are different prices, different cost of attendance. So with that being said, that cost of attendance does determine a big portion of how much a student can get. So it's going to be individual to the schools that student is applying to. Now, the thing that we can somewhat determine, that we do determine through the applications, is the expected family contribution, EFC. And the way this is calculated is, as a student fills out their application, they put in their income, they put in their demographic information, it's mainly based off income and assets of the family. If the student is an independent student, which we'll talk about later, they don't have to include their parents' information. If they are a dependent student, we'll talk about what that means. They do have to include parent information. And that kind of information, assets, income, all that stuff, that is used to determine what we would call the expected family contribution. And so once we have the cost of attendance based on the school that the student is interested in going to, and then we've calculated the expected family contribution based on the information that has been put on the application, we get the student's financial need. And so that's pretty much how that is determined. So once again, I can't give you a rough number. I can just tell you that it depends, and this is how the calculation process works. But with that being said, I can tell you what kind of different aid programs there are that a student could potentially qualify for. And before I even go further into this presentation, I want to make this very clear. Just like this workshop is free, these applications are free. You don't have to pay to fill out these applications. They are free. They are absolutely super duper 100% free. So I just want to put that out there just in case there's any nervousness. So it's literally, you just have to fill out this information and you could potentially get some free money. But when a student is filling out the application, this slide kind of covers how much they can get from the federal government. Now, I do want to be clear. Remember how I said the CADA, California GMAT application, is a state application for undocumented students typically. So if a student is filling out the CADA, this slide would not apply to them, unfortunately, because undocumented students do not qualify for federal aid as of right now. So, however, if they fill out the FAFSA, which allows them to qualify for both federal and state aid, then this slide does apply to them. And I also want to make that differentiation when I say that the CADA and the FAFSA are very similar, but there are instances where they are not, obviously where they diverge. And I'll be sure to point that out whenever that kind of situation arises. This is one of those situations. Because the CADA is a state aid application, undocumented students do not qualify for federal aid. But FAFSA students who file the FAFSA can qualify for both state and federal aid. So in this case, a FAFSA filer could qualify for up to $6,495 per year in federal Pell Grant money. That is free grant money that can go to covering a lot of different costs at a university or college. So that's now, it doesn't mean that everybody who fills out the application is going to get this money. Obviously, you have to be within certain income and asset thresholds, and you have to have a certain EFC. That EFC will determine how much of this grant you'd be able to qualify for. But this money is available. And, we really love to emphasize students to apply because in 2018, over $2.6 billion in federal money was left on the table. So that's just money that was not used because people are not applying. So please apply. You just never know what you're going to get. It's free already. So just do it. The next thing is federal work study. Federal work study, the way it works is, the best way to explain it is, let's say you're a student and you're trying to get a job on a campus, on a college campus, right? Now, the way work study works is it will say that, okay, this student is going to get paid $15 an hour. The federal government, if it is a work study job, so if the student got what is called a work study job, that means the federal government is going to subsidize a portion of that student's salary. What does that mean? So if I'm getting paid $15 an hour and I'm working on an on-campus job, the federal government could potentially, hypothetically, pay like $5 of my salary. And so now my school employer who's paying me to work only has to pay me $10. Now they advertise that job as a $15 an hour job. The student, me, in this particular scenario, is still getting my full $15 an hour. But it's cheaper for my school employer who's employing me on campus, who has this work study position, to employ me because they don't have to pay my full salary because the federal government is going to subsidize a portion of it. So work study is a really great opportunity, especially for students who are considering working during college. That's really what it is. It actually, some jobs on campuses, on college campuses, will literally tell students that we will only hire work study students because it's a lot cheaper for them to do that. So work study is great to have. When a student is filling out the FAFSA, they should definitely click that they are interested in work study if that question is prompted for them. So that's pretty much what it means. And it is based per institution, and it does run out on college campuses. So it's something you definitely want to make sure that you get as quickly as possible and talk to a financial aid office if it's not on your award to see if you can qualify for that. The other thing is direct subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. So I'm not really going to talk about the amounts here, but the main thing to know that is the difference between them. Because every year, the way the subsidized and unsubsidized loans is you qualify for more money with each passing year. That's kind of how it works. But with that being said, some key things to note is a subsidized loan does not accrue interest while a student is in school. Whereas an unsubsidized loan does accrue interest once the student has taken it out. So for students, if a student is offered the option between subsidized and unsubsidized loans, then it's probably a smart idea to take out the subsidized loans because then it won't accrue interest while the student is at school, whereas an unsubsidized loan will. So just want y'all to know about that, to know the difference so that if you're a student and you're having to pick between loans and you're confused, then you know which ones to take or which one will be the better option for you and you're informed. The other thing that is also out there is the Direct Plus loan, or sometimes called Parent Plus loan. And this one is a loan that parents can take on behalf of their children who are students. And these work kind of like unsubsidized loans in that they accrue interest once they've been taken out. I will say, though, some of you may ask, okay, why is it better to take loans from the federal government rather than from, let's say, a private market lender? Well, what we find is the loans from the federal government tend to be a lot cheaper than the ones that you would get on the private market. So that's why it's beneficial to use these for education. And I believe they have more opportunities to be forgiven depending on the student's career path. So just putting that out there for students running into loans, that they should consider out their options and just really look at it and really think about it carefully to see what works best for them. Now we're talking about state aid. So on this slide, because we're talking about state aid, this applies to both CADA filers as well as FAFSA filers. So whichever application the student fills out, they could qualify for all of this. And so the main thing we want to talk about when it comes to state aid in California, actually thanks to the senator and his colleagues, we have a very generous program, a financial aid program here in California. It's an extremely generous program, if not the most generous in the country. And it's pretty much called the Cal Grant program. And so at a UC or CSU, the Cal Grant program pretty much covers tuition and fees. At a community college, because the community college have also what is called the California Promise Grant that waives tuition, the Cal Grant can then work to give them what is called an access award, which is pretty much a stipend to say, hey, cover your books and supplies and stuff like that. At private schools, it goes towards tuition and fees. Now, obviously, how much of tuition and fees would be covered at a private school depends on the private school. So once again, it's one of those it depends questions. And then, at other private for-profit schools, it can cover a certain portion as long as it's an accredited institution. Something we also do like to note is that students with dependent children can qualify for a Cal Grant Access Award. So they could get the portion of the Cal Grant that covers tuition fees, and in addition, get an additional $4,000 to $6,000 in order to assist them with their dependent children. So it wouldn't just be the $4,000 to $6,000. If they qualify, it would be $4,000 to $6,000 plus the additional $5,970 if they're going to a UC, or $5,742 if they're going to a CSU. So this is a very generous program once again, and it's one of the reasons why we tell students to apply early, because if you think about it, right, the way our process works, if a student were to apply today, they could probably know what kind of financial aid, if they qualify for a Cal Grant by like the end of December, they can know that. And for a lot of students who are applying to their colleges for the first time this year, they might be thinking, I don't like California anymore. It burns. It's always burning. Things are always bad. There's a drought. I want to leave the state, and they want to go to the East Coast. But now if they know that, wait, if I go to certain California schools, I can literally have my tuition fees waived. That changes the entire calculation. That completely changed the entire calculation. So that's why we recommend that students apply as early as possible so that they're as informed as possible when they're making these decisions. And this slide pretty much just further breaks down what I was mentioning previously, that students can get lots of different aids depending on which institution they're going to, which kind of goes back to one of my previous points where it's like, I can't tell you how much you'd get exactly. It does depend on the institution you're going to. But based on the institution you're going to, if you qualify for the full max award, this slide kind of gives you a rough idea of what that would look like. So I'm going to let everybody just look at it for a little bit, see all that free money that's out there. Look at all that free money, take it in. And I hope that's like inspiring you right now to go on your computer and start filling out your FAFSA or your CADA, because look at all this free money that's just waiting for you to take it. So some other things that we do have, because I tend to run to a lot of parents and students who are like, wait, this all sounds great, but this sounds like it's specifically for very low income people. And I'm middle class. And I don't know if there's even any point. I feel like I'm not going to get any financial aid. Well, I got news for you too. So we also have what is called a middle class scholarship that literally waives up to 35% of tuition and fees at a UC or a CSU. And this applies to people who fill out the California GMAT application, or as well as people who fill out the FAFSA. So that's just to say, like, even middle class students, if you're worried, you should definitely still fill it out. And I will say it's worth looking into it because Cal Grant also does tend to favor lower middle class students too. So and then middle class scholarship, also in addition, that is for more middle class people, so they'll be able to qualify for that. But all this is to say, you don't know what you're going to get up until you apply. So just apply. It doesn't hurt to apply. Another program I love to mention is our Chaffey Grant program for foster youth. This one's interesting because it is actually a separate application. It is a separate application. So if a student was a ward of the court or was in foster care for at least the ages between 16 and 18, then they would qualify for this Chaffey Grant. And this Chaffey Grant would be in addition to potential federal and state money. So they could get a Cal Grant, a Chaffey Grant, and a Pell Grant, which is the federal grant. So this is a great opportunity for our foster care youth, for our foster students. Please, if you know any, tell them about this opportunity. The application only needs to be filled out once. So once the student fills it out once, they can literally have eligibility for 5 years up until the age of 26, I believe. So it's a really great opportunity, really great program. Definitely recommend that we talk about it more because we want to make sure that we're supporting our foster youth. Some helpful tips before you begin your application. The thing I like to focus here, there's a couple of things here that I like to focus on. Number one is full name. Now, I know instantly some of y'all are thinking, wow, you really have us sitting in this workshop just to tell us to put our full names in. And I'm saying, yes, I absolutely do. And here's why. One of the most common reasons why applications don't match is because students get their name wrong. And what do I mean by applications match? So I'm going to give y'all a little bit of an inside knowledge on how financial aid works. So you have high school counselors. These high school counselors, they upload, or high school counselors, or even community college counselors, four-year college people, they upload GPAs to the student aid commission. They give us the student's GPA. We're like, cool, we got the GPA. And then the student fills out the application. And then what we do is we match it. Now, the most common reason these two things do not match is because of names. Because the high school will give us, or the community college or the foyer will give us one name, and the student will put a completely other name on the application, and now they can't get aid because they didn't get their name right. So yes, I just spent 30 to 40 seconds in this workshop reminding y'all to get your name right because it's so critical. And I'll probably say it again at some point too, because it's so critical, and we just see so many students struggle because they didn't get their name right. So what is the solution to that? Solution is simple. If you're filling out the FAFSA, make sure you're using the name on your social security card number. If you're filling out the California GMAT application, make sure you're using the name on your school records. And that is a simple, no nicknames, no shorthand, no shortcut, use those two avenues. The other thing I want to focus on this particular page is email address. We strongly recommend against using an institutional email. What do I mean? So if I'm Johnny and I attend El Camino High School, I should not be using my El Camino High School email. I should be using a personal email, because what happens if I'm Johnny and I graduate from El Camino High School? They just kicked me off the server. Now I can't get my information because my application was tied to that email, and now I can't get my application information because I got kicked off El Camino High School server. So that's why it's critical. We say use a personal email that you'll have access to for multiple years. Avoid using institutional emails. Now, who can apply for these applications? So I told you I was going to give y'all a breakdown of who should be filling out which application. So here it is. So for the FAFSA, it is U.S. citizens, legal permanent residents, certain designations, including refugees or those granted asylum, and T visa holders. T visa holders, these are individuals who are subject to human trafficking, so they have a specific visa. They can fill out the FAFSA too. And so once again, the FAFSA allows a student to qualify for both state and federal aid. That's how the FAFSA works. And if you're filling out the FAFSA, then you should not be filling out the CADA. Creating an FSA ID. So an FSA ID, pretty much the simplest way to put it is it's like a login for a student so that they can log into their application. Now, if a student is a dependent student, which once again, I'll explain more what it means, but in general, dependent student just means I need my parents' information and signature to complete my application. Whereas independent means I don't need my parents' information and signature to complete an application. I'll let y'all know how that is determined later, but as of now, that's all you need to know, that if dependent, they need their parents' information and they need their parents' signature. If independent, they don't need that. Right now, right off the bat, in case you're curious, 99.9% of high school students are going to be dependent students. So I'm just letting y'all know right now, but we'll explain why later. But for now, if a student is dependent, then they need their parents to also create an FSA ID. And that's going to be really important because the way FSA IDs require social security numbers. So you need a social security number to create an FSA ID. Now that's going to create some complications, right? Well, why? For some people, they're in a situation where they're in a mixed status household. So the student is a permanent resident or the student is a US citizen, but the parent is undocumented. And so, or the parent has an issue with their social security number because of fraud or whatever. What do we do in those situations? I'm glad you asked. In those specific situations, what we do is the student still fills out the application, but the parent also puts in their own information. They put in their own information. They don't create an FSA ID in that situation. But what they do is they wait for the student to complete the application. Then the student prints out what is called a FAFSA signature page. The parent signs it, and then that has to be mailed in to the address that is on that signature page. So that's what needs to happen when a parent cannot create an FSA ID and therefore cannot sign the application digitally online. They would have to mail in a signature page. In addition to that, the FAFSA will ask students and parents for their social security numbers. So once again, if we're back in that mixed status household situation where the student has a social security number, but the parent doesn't, then the parent should just put zeros wherever they are asked for a social security number. So I hope that clears that up. I know it's a little complicated, but this is specific for mixed status households. If you're not in a mixed status household, and you're a dependent student, then your parents should be filling out the application. They should be putting out their social security information wherever prompted and fill it out that way. Cool. So now we're talking about the California GMAT application. Once again, this is a state aid application because California as a state does have a financial aid system for undocumented students. So this is a state aid application. It does not allow a student to qualify for federal aid, but it does allow a student to qualify for state aid. So it's for undocumented students, and this is a point we definitely need to make, with or without DACA. I'm going to spend some time on this point because there's a lot of confusion out there where DACA recipients, because they have a documentation that allows them to work in this country, they believe they should be filling out the FAFSA. That is incorrect. DACA is a federal work program. It has nothing to do with financial aid. If a student has DACA, they should be filling out the CADA. That's now we've dispelled myth number one. Myth number two is, well, what happens if a student is undocumented and doesn't have DACA? Well, then they should be filling out the California GMAT application too. So my point in saying this is DACA is not a requirement for the CADA. However, if a student has DACA, then they definitely should be filling out the California GMAT application and not the FAFSA. So I hope I've cleared that up. And then we have TPS status and U visa holders. These are the statuses that should be filling out the California GMAT application if they're applying for financial aid. So where the FAFSA has an FSA ID, the CADA has a user ID and password. So the CADA has a user ID and password. That's how students log in, and that's how parents log in. So it also has security questions. But yeah, so FAFSA has FSA ID, CADA is user ID and password. So as you can see, this slide keeps coming back. Accurate name, Please get that right. I said it. It even says get it right the first time with an exclamation mark. That's how you know we're serious here at CSAC about this. Like, clearly this has happened too many times. We had to put an exclamation mark. But I'll point in saying accurate name, get it right. Please just get it right the first time. Once again, if you're filling out the CADA, you should be using your school records. If you're filling out the FAFSA, you should be using the name on your social security card. So I hope that's cleared up. Date of birth. Most students know their date of birth, but this is where it gets complicated. You have that one parent who's like, I'm going to do the application for all my kids. And then they remember like, oh, I have 3 kids. And I don't know which one's birthday is which. And then they confuse the little brother's birthday with the older brother. And then it becomes a whole mess. And now the demographic information is wrong. And now they're super embarrassed. Or the other way where the child is scared to ask their parent like, hey, when's your birthday? Because they probably should know that. That all we're saying is that this is a really good thing to do if you're a dependent student, specifically if you're a dependent student, which once again is going to be like 99% of high school students and a lot of students in their first years of college, a lot of them, not all of them. But if you're and below the age of 24, but if you're around that age, then yeah, this is a really good time to, when you're filling out this application, just to be in the same room as your parent or guardian, just so that you can knock all these things out really quickly. It just makes things easier. Correct address. For homeless students, so obviously for correct address, so if a student has a home, then they should be putting that, or if their parents own a home or rent, or they have a primary residence, that's where they stay and can get mail, they should be putting that in there. But for our homeless students, please talk to your high school counselors and just to figure out what is the best place to get that financial aid information sent, because we still want y'all applying for financial aid. So we want to make that very clear. Email address, I said this before, I'll say it again. Avoid at all costs institutional emails. Please use personal emails. And so, yeah, this kind of just goes over what I just said. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Y'all get it. Y'all smart. I know y'all got it. So whose info goes on a FAFSA or CADA? This applies to both applications, actually. But it's a really great graphic that we just love because it answers so many questions. And so remember I said dependent students need parent information. I'm just going to give you all a quick tip. Once again, most students under 24 will be dependent students. They will be dependent students, so they will need parent information, parent signature. Most students still in undergrad will be dependent students and will need parent signature, especially if they're also under 24 and are not married. So just giving you all some of the ways we determine dependency, but we'll give a full explanation later. But my point in saying everybody should pay attention here very closely, because this will explain whose parents' information goes on the application. So who's my parent when I fill out the FAFSA or CADA? This applies to both. So are your parents married to each other? Yes. Then that's a simple one. Report information for both parents on the application. Boom, knock that one out. No. Well, then the next question is, do your parents live together? Yes, if your parents live together, even if they're unmarried, you're reporting both of the information on the application. Did you live with one parent more than, so if the answer is no, let's say your parents are unmarried and they don't live together. Did you live with one parent more than the other over the past 12 months? If the answer is yes, the parent who you lived with more, that's the parent whose information is going on the application, just theirs. If the answer is no, we then ask ourselves, okay, your parents are unmarried, don't live together, you lived with them about roughly the same amount of time over the past 12 months. So who financially supported you the most over these past 12 months? And so if the answer is yes, this parents were over the past 12 months, then you put that parent's information. Now, for the parent who's financially supported you over the past 12 months, and for the parent who you lived with more in the situation where your parents are unmarried and don't live together, then the next question we have for both those parents, the financial supporting one or the one who you lived with the most, have those parents remarried? If those parents have remarried, then you report their spouse's information on the application too. So in this case, the student would be reporting their step-parents' information on the application. If those parents have not remarried, then the answer is no, you're done. You only report that one parent who either was financially supporting you more or you lived with more over the past 12 months when your parents were unmarried and not living together. So that should answer like 99% of the scenarios. Once in a while, someone always tries to come up with like a scenario like, well, what about this? Rarely do they come up with one, but I'll challenge y'all if y'all want to go for it. But that should cover pretty much all the scenarios about who is my parent. Now, the following people are not your parents, and unless they legally adopted the student. So we're going to talk about what legally adopted means. I know it even says legal guardians here, so it's like, wait, legal guardians don't count as legally adopted? It depends. So when we say guardianship or legally adopted in financial aid, it means that the rights of your biological parents have been terminated, and a judge through a court order has said, these are your new guardians. So it has to go through an entire court process. It doesn't count if it's just an individual private attorney who does it. That doesn't count. It doesn't count if you're just living with your aunt and uncle. They don't automatically become your parents. It has to be done through a court order and a judge. That's how it works for it to count as legal adoption, at least within the financial aid framework. So that's some helpful tips. Do not confuse parent information questions with student information questions. Something to note, most of the applications, a lot of the time when they're saying you, they're talking to the student. So if you're one of those parents who's helping your student out with the application, most of the time when it's saying you, it's talking to the student. However, it will specify very clearly when it's not. Student gender. When it comes to student gender, if there are questions about student gender, then that the student, if there's a question about student gender, then the student should pick the sex they were assigned at birth. So unfortunately for transitioning students or students who transitioned, the application counts the sex that was assigned at birth. Income and asset questions. So do not confuse parent income questions with student income questions. So both students and parents will be asked about their income. They will be asked about their income. So don't confuse those, don't conflate those. And then please answer all mandatory questions. For the FAFSA filers, there is a thing called IRS data retrieval tool. It's this really amazing tool whereby if a student uses it, or a student or parent can use it, it just takes the tax information that's uploaded to the IRS and automatically transcribes it onto your application. And it's encrypted, so only the schools that receive your application will be able to see it. Really great tool, saves a lot of time, and makes it such that a student is less likely to get selected for what we call verification, which is pretty much just a process where 1 in 5 students will be selected for verification, and we go through their information that they submitted to make sure that it's accurate. So using IRS data retrieval tool is a quick way. It lowers your chances of getting selected for verification, which is not a bad thing. It's a thing we do have to do, but it does lower the chances. Unfortunately, IRS data retrieval tool is only available to FAFSA filers, and I also believe people who you cannot access it if parent filed married head of household or married filed separately. And yeah, I think those two designations cannot use FAFSA, cannot use IRS data retrieval tool, but the application would tell you if it believes you qualify for it. Unsure of exact amounts, yeah, this is something we just say, sometimes you might not know the information. Sometimes you'll be filling out the application and then it tells you, hey, you didn't file your taxes, but you actually need to file. In those situations, we just recommend estimating because we want y'all to get those applications in quickly and then filing your taxes and then coming back and filling it out with the correct information and updating that information. So that's something we do recommend if you need more time to file your taxes or need to gather more financial information, estimate, submit, come back and update. College selection. So college selection here, it's a great feature. The main thing we just want to highlight, like, hey, if you don't know the full name of the college you're trying to attend to, which would be kind of awkward, but if you don't, then you can look up a portion of that name and it'll populate all the colleges that have that, whatever you typed in, all those colleges will show up with that specific portion or string of letters that you typed in their name. So for example, I went to University of California, Santa Barbara. That's a lot to type in. So I just type in Santa and all the schools with Santa in them just show up. So it's a quick, easy tool, really great to use. But some more important stuff about college selection is please, I think the most important thing here is one, you can pick 10 colleges at a time. So you can always wait a week and come back and update those colleges and then add a new list and let's say if you put in your initial list of 10, you wait a week, you come back, you put a new list of 10 and delete the old list of 10, all 20 of those colleges will get the application and they won't know what order you put them in. So that's one. Number two, the most important thing here that we want to emphasize is please pick a California college, at least one in your initial list of 10. Here's why. Because when you pick a California college in your initial list of 10, it allows us to receive your application to see whether you qualify for a Cal grant. We mainly talk to the FAFSA files. This applies to CADA, but if you're filling out the CADA, you're probably looking at California schools because the CADA is a state aid application. But if you're filling out the FAFSA CADA, just recommend, please put in at least one California college in your initial list of 10. Y'all saw how generous the Cal Grant program is. And if you don't do that, then what will happen is you won't get, we won't review to see if you qualify for a Cal Grant. And so you won't actually know if you qualify for a Cal Grant. And then if you're now interested to see, hey, can I qualify for a Cal Grant? You'd have to submit separate paperwork from the application in order to qualify, in order for us to even check to see if you qualify. So just save yourself the trouble and submit a California college to the initial list of 10. We typically recommend a community college, a community college, a four-year public university, and a four-year public private school, just so that you can get a sense of how much you'd be getting at each institution. So once again, cannot emphasize this enough. And it doesn't hurt you because remember, you can wait a week and add a new list of 10. And none of these colleges will know what order you put them in. So it's not going to hurt you. It will only help you to put at least recommended, more than one, but at least one California college in your initial list of 10. Dependency question. So I've been talking about this a lot, but dependency question is pretty much about, I believe, 12 to 15 questions, where if a student answers no to all of them, then they're a dependent student. That means they need parent information on the application and they need a parent signature. So that's pretty much dependency questions. And y'all can see some of them here. As you can see, it's pretty hard to get independent status if you're coming out of high school, it's pretty hard to get independent status if you're just coming out of high school, you just graduated high school. So that's why I said earlier, a lot of times you will find most students who are graduating high school are dependent students, so they need parent information. So I know a lot of students will be like, hey, I'm 18, I'm finally free, and my parents want to pay for college. It's not how it works. The Department of Education has its own separate guidelines, and these are used for both the FAFSA and the CADA. So I want to make that very clear. Now, to the parents out there, some of you are like, you know what? I do not want to contribute anything to my student's education. So I'm going to trick the system and I'm not going to fill out the application, even if it says my student or my child is a dependent. Well, not the greatest idea, because if the application says the student is a dependent student and the parent does not fill out their portion, then that student can only qualify for unsubsidized loans. That is the only thing they can qualify for. So it does not help the student in any way at all. It doesn't. It really doesn't. So please, if the application says this student is a dependent student, parents, we need y'all to step up, fill out the application, fill out your portion of the application, because you could literally be holding back grant aid from a student. Now, after the applicant says if you answer yes to one of these questions, then you're an independent student and you don't need parent information or a parent signature. So that's pretty much how we're just explain that. Now, what if a student's parents live in another country, which is a situation we do run into? So even if a student's parents live in another country, then the student still needs to put their parents' information on the application, their biological parents' information, if the application says they're a dependent student. Now, this is also could be one of those special circumstances. Sometimes a student will not be able to get in contact with their parents for some reason. And let's say there's just some barrier that is completely making it impossible for the student to get in contact with their parent. In those situations, we still recommend that the student submit the application, because there's an option that says, I'm going to submit this application without parent information. A student can click that. Then what they would have to do in order to be able to be considered for all those other types of grant aid, whether federal or state, they would have to go to the financial aid office that they sent the application to and make the case on why they cannot contact their parents or why they can't get that parent information. The financial aid office has its own requirements. All the financial aid offices have their own specific requirements. We can't do anything about it here at CSAC. It really is up to the financial aid offices, but they can do what is called a dependency override. And they can change the status of a student from dependent to independent. But it tends to be in very specific and special circumstances, but those are up to the individual financial aid office. Household size. Thing that we like to emphasize here, it's not necessarily based on who claimed who on the tax documents or who claimed who as a dependent on the tax document. The simplest way to put it is, if you are a child of the parent who's filling out the application, then you are a part of the household. If you will be supported by that parent 50% plus or more in the coming year. If you are not a child or not a student, so a child or a student, they can be in college, they can be in a different country, but as long as they're getting that 50% plus more support from the parent, then they would count as a part of the household. Whereas a non-child, if they are getting support of 50% plus or more and living with that parent, with that individual, then they are part of the household. So if they're dependent and they're receiving 50% plus or more support from that individual, so this would be an aunt, an uncle, maybe a grandparent. If they're living and they're getting that support and they're under the same roof, then they count. But if they're just getting the financial support, but they don't live with the parent, then they do not count as a part of the household. So children are the only ones who count regardless of whether they're in the household or not, whether they're actually under the same roof or not, whereas everybody else has to be living with the individual, the parent, or has to be living with that individual, and has to be receiving 50% plus or more support in the coming year. So that's how that calculation is made for household. Selective service, what it emphasizes, this used to be a requirement for financial aid purposes. It is no longer a requirement. It's still a requirement for males between the ages of 18 to 25 to register for selective service, but it is no longer a requirement for them to get financial aid. So they still have to do it, but they don't have to do it to get financial aid. So that was a new change that actually happened recently because of the senator and his colleagues. So we welcome that, and it's going to make it easier for students to access state and federal aid. Special circumstances. So remember at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about how when we were talking about tax information, we said prior tax information, and how sometimes that doesn't reflect a student's current situation. So we're now at that point where we're talking about those special circumstances. And these are some examples of special circumstances. But the long story short, much like a dependency override, the student would have to go to the financial aid office, explain what their situation is, potentially provide some documentation depending on what that financial aid office requires. And then the financial aid administrators can do what is called a professional judgment, and they can adjust the student's financial aid award accordingly, regardless of what was on those 2020 tax transcripts, if that information has now changed or has been affected by any one of these situations and more. So this is one of those situations, once again, best put a contact at the financial aid office. We at TSAC can't do that, so please contact the financial aid office for the student, and they'll be able to help the student with that. So some important deadlines. March 2nd is an important deadline. That is the state aid deadline for four-year universities. So if you want to get a Cal grant and you're trying to go to a four-year university, you want to make sure that you fill out your application by March 2nd. The deadline for community college students is September 2nd for state aid if they want to get an entitlement Cal grant. And what we mean by deadline is entitlement awards. So there's two ways, at least with state aid, you can get an entitlement Cal grant award or a competitive Cal grant award. Entitlement means you meet the requirements and you got your application on time, so you're guaranteed this award for this year. Competitive means you meet the requirements, but you submitted your application late, so you have to compete for this award. I'm going to tell you some pretty grim statistics about a competitive Cal grant. You have a better chance of winning in Vegas than you do of getting a competitive Cal grant. So yeah, we definitely recommend students get those applications in on time, because you do not want to be competing, or you don't want to be gambling. You're literally gambling your education away by missing this deadline. So for 4 years, once again, it is a March 2nd deadline. For community college, that state aid deadline is September 2nd. However, it just is so much better if the student gets it done a lot sooner. Other thing that we want to mention, apply regardless of income. You also have the middle class scholarship that's out there. There's a lot of different financial aid opportunities that are out there, and you just never know. Other things we also want to say is complete your web grants for students account after you complete your application. This is an account where a student can monitor their financial aid of their application, to see if there's any additional documents, to see if their GPAs have been uploaded by their high school counselor or by their community college counselors or four-year counselors, to see if that's been uploaded. And yeah, so web grants is a really great tool. We definitely recommend students use it. And they can also find out what aid they're getting. So if they qualify for a Cal grant, a chaffey grant, a middle class scholarship, they can find all that information out on web grants. Other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. So you can please feel free to contact us, contact your counselors. Contact whoever us, your counselors, financial aid administrators and get the help you need to fill out your application. Some common application mistakes. Please make sure you're filling out the correct year. So for this coming year, for this next academic cycle, so the cycle that begins fall next year will be 2022-2023 application. People can still fill out the 2021-2022 application, but that's for this current cycle that we're in. It would be a late application though, but it's for this current cycle that we're in. But right now we are talking about next year, and next year's application is 2022-2023 for the school year starting next year. And so please make sure that the application tells you when you first log in to say, hey, which cycle and which year you're in. So please, please, please make sure that students are filling out the application for the right academic cycle. The application was submitted after the March 2nd deadline. I already kind of talked about this. Now you're putting the student is now in a situation where they have to compete for certain state awards rather than having them entitled even if they qualified. Name on the application is listed incorrectly. I told y'all this keeps on coming up, and there's a reason it keeps on coming up. So please, once again, if you're filling out the FAFSA, use the name that is on your social security card. If you're filling out the CADA, use what's on your school records. A mandatory question was not answered. That's pretty self-explanatory. We definitely recommend that students go back to the applications and check just to make sure that everything got taken care of. Application was not signed by parents, dependent students. When you do that, parents, you're putting your student in a situation where they can only qualify for unsubsidized loans, not even subsidized loans, just unsubsidized loans. So don't do that to your students. Even if you're not going to pay towards the education, at least they could potentially qualify for aid just because you filled out the application. Application was saved but not submitted. Please make sure that the application is submitted and it will tell you once your application is submitted and everything is done, because you should receive a confirmation within 3 to 5 days through a student aid report, which is emailed to you. So if you don't get that, you should be worried and you should go back in and check. The required paper signature was required but not sent. Once again, this is for parents. So this typically we'll see this in mixed status households where the student has U.S. citizenship or permanent residence, but the parent is undocumented, or the parent has an issue with their social security card number. This is when the parent has to submit in a paper signature. Please make sure that gets sent in as soon as possible. And there were other unresolved errors on the application. The application is pretty smart. It will tell you when something is wrong. So please make sure that you check those things. So right now I'm going to talk a little bit about the chaffey grant for foster youth. As I mentioned earlier, $5,000 annual scholarship for foster youth. And it pretty much the requirements for it is that a student just has to be a ward of the court or be in foster care between the ages of 16 and 18 for at least 1 day. And yeah, if they meet those requirements, then they file the chaffey grant application. After filling out their FAFSA or their CADA, then they can qualify for this program annually. And it pays up to 5 years. I believe the age cutoff is 26. And yeah, it's a really great program. And the application only has to be filled out once, which is really awesome. So it's not something a student has to worry about every single year, whereas the FAFSA and the CADA are annual applications. So a student would have to fill out those applications every single year. So that's just something to note. Current and farm. We also have what is called a Cal Grant Access Award for foster youth. So this is separate from the chaffey grant. So if a foster youth student is awarded a Cal Grant, they can qualify for a Cal Grant Access Award with the same requirements for the ages of 16 and 18, at least 1 day in foster care or being a ward of the court. And this would pretty much give them an access award of up to $6,000 in addition to their chaffey grant award. So a foster youth student could qualify for a chaffey grant award, qualify for a access award, and qualify for the actual Cal Grant, and could also qualify for a federal Cal Grant. As you can see, we really want our foster care youth to go to college because we know that they're a demographic that does struggle in this particular area. And so we want to make sure that this word is getting out there about all the financial aid opportunities available for them. So these are different things chaffey funds may be used for. They can be used for rent, housing, transportation, childcare, post-grad studies, teacher certification, eligible out-of-state schools. They can use for a bunch of different things. But yeah, so this is really important. Once again, want to make sure that we get that message out. And then, yeah, so once again, the student has to fill out the FAFSA and the CADA annually, FAFSA or CADA annually, so not both, but one. Has to fill that out annually. They have to fill out their chaffey grant application once. And then they have to make sure that they get that electronic verification from CDSS. And I believe it's a one-time thing. So it's a one-time requirement. They're not going to have to do that every single year. So we try to make it as easy as possible, but we definitely need foster care and foster youth to be willing to come forward and say, hey, I'm in foster care, I'm in foster youth. And just by doing that, they can definitely qualify for a lot of aid. Now, something I do also want to mention while we're talking about different populations is when undocumented students fill out the CADA, we do not share that information with immigration services. So for those of you undocumented students who might be worried about that, I do want to make that very clear before ending this presentation that that information is not being shared with immigration services when you fill out the CADA. Now, with that being said, it is 6:26. I got like 4 minutes. I managed to make it through this presentation with 4 minutes to spare. But here are our social media handles. Please feel free to follow us on social media. I always say, follow us. We can't guarantee that we'll follow you, but you will get some positive information and some really informative stuff. So please feel free to take a screenshot of that. I'll leave it up for like 5 more seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Yeah, please follow us on social media. Got a lot of great content there. Judith is doing a lot of great stuff and posting a lot of great information there. So please check it out. And with that being said, we've also got our website, csac.ca.gov. That's our main page. That's where you will find all things CSAC. dream.csac.ca.gov. That is our CADA page. That's where you'll find the CADA application. mygrantinfo.csac.ca.gov. That is the web grants page. That's the account that students can create to monitor their financial aid, see what kind of awards they're going to receive, and check to see if they need to submit additional documentation. And with that being said, thank you all so much for coming. I'd like to thank Senator Min's office for working with us and inviting us to be able to talk to y'all. It's always a pleasure to get this information out. Hopefully y'all learned a lot of information. If y'all have questions, I can stick around for a little bit. I'll answer questions live. I have no problem doing that. And yeah, thank you to the team. Thank you for showing up. And I hope y'all have a great day.